As we all know, Thanksgiving is a time for family, friends, and food. And while that's all good and well, or well and good, it's important to remember some safety precautions to make sure the holiday goes off without a hitch. This episode will include tips on how to stay safe while cooking, eating, and celebrating the holidays so everyone can enjoy Thanksgiving without any accidents or injuries. I'm Jeff England, and you're listening to the Fort Polk Podcast. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this, because it is a podcast and you get to download it or stream it or whatever at your convenience. I'm Jeff England with the Fort Polk Public Affairs Office, and today we have some guests in our studio. Assistant Chief of the Fort Polk Fire Department Fire Protection Branch, Chad Estes. That's the Assistant Chief. That's a nice big title there.
It's a long title that means absolutely nothing.
It's like having a bunch of letters after your name. MD, PhD, LCC.
All of the above.
And also we have Captain Aaron Judson, the Chief of Louisiana Branch Veterinary Services. Hey, how's it going?
Good morning.
All right. Thanks for coming on over. And Sergeant Chris Choi from the Food Section, the main NCO over there. You know, he's the important guy that everyone wants to make sure that he has the last say in what you eat over the DFACs.
I guess so.
All right. Well, we've got a very important holiday. Well, this is the holiday season. So, I mean, we have several things going on. We got Thanksgiving and Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, my birthday, Valentine's Day. Yeah, a bunch of interesting stuff.
When's your birthday?
January.
Okay.
So it's
Mine's December.
Yeah, so we got everything going on, but the big thing around here is my favorite food for Thanksgiving is turkey, and it's not my wife's favorite, so I have to not have turkey every year. Nah, I'm just kidding. Sometimes we have it, but I think this year we're going to go with barbecue. So
that's a good choice.
So it is a good choice, but
Barbecue turkey.
Barbecue turkey would be good.
I would.
No, that's one thing that I noticed that really caught me off guard is I love going to Renaissance fairs, and it is Renaissance fair season over the Texas Renaissance Fair. And one of their big things is smoked turkey legs.
That's right.
Yes.
And, I grew up with turkey or any kind of fowl, chicken and all that stuff. It needs to be cooked all the way through, and you don't want pink turkey or pink chicken and all that stuff. And I bit into this smoked turkey leg, and it was dark pink. And it's like, oh God. And it's like, it threw me off of smoked turkey legs, and I still have to tell myself, no. It's cooked. It's just the smoke ring.
That's what you want to see.
Yeah, it was so weird. It just threw me off so much.
As long as that pink stuff wasn't runny.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or there's no red in it.
No, it was crazy though. It's like, it took me a while to realize that it literally turned me off of smoked turkey legs for years and years, and I'm still not quite over it. It's just when you bite into it, and it's like, oh, that's not what I was expecting to see. I mean, I like roast turkey and deep fried turkey, and deep frying turkey is the best. I love it. Now, at first I love the to eat it, but I also love to cook it, and I've done it several different ways. Twice was correctly, and once was not so correctly. It turns out that not only do you need the right temperature, but you need the right oil. And I didn't know that, so I was using motor oil. And I
thought I recognized you from that
video. It was the motor oil and a frozen turkey. Yeah, it was great. It was a great combination. No, I used canola oil because the stores didn't have any peanut oil, and the peanut oil is what I'm supposed to use.
Yes. The
canola oil, it turns out, was not a good choice. Because that turkey turned out black. It looked like it was burnt, but you peel the black skin off, and the turkey inside was fine.
That's right.
It was delicious, but it was off-putting with the look. Yeah. And once again, you eat with your eyes first, I guess.
Very true.
So, Chief, the deep frying turkeys, especially with the propane setups,
Yes.
This propane, because I have the propane setup turkey that I do outside, and then I have the Butterball deep fryer that we can do in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yes, and that actually works pretty well too.
Yeah, we encourage either the electric or the air fryer. That's what we encourage because they're a whole lot safer, and you can use it in different areas of the home. Well,
now to me the air fryer is a roaster.
Well, it depends on if you do it the right way.
Yeah.
Let's get that.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, that's a little better. Yeah.
Okay.
It just point the mic at you. It helps.
Yeah.
So what are some of the safety precautions for deep frying turkey, especially with the propane ones? I mean, open flames in hot oil are always a great combo.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have the two different types as well. You have the oilless fryer, and then you have the actual true to what it is, the deep fryer. So you need to be careful with both of them. And obviously, when you're dealing with the deep fryer with all that oil that you were talking about, you want to make sure that you have it on a sturdy, level surface so that there's no tip over hazards and they're not going to be knocked over by anything. Speaking of being knocked over, make sure that the kids and the pets are not around.
Oh God, that would not be a pleasant sight.
For many different reasons. If you're going to use the propane fryers, make sure that they're at least 10 feet away from your home. Please don't do this inside your garage or on your back porch or anything like that, just in case it gets knocked over.
The garage is a great place for doing a lot of things, and
it keeps us in the fire department. It keeps us in business.
Yeah.
But we don't want that here on Fort Polk.
See, I could talk all day about all the things that can go wrong with some of our traditions, like deep frying the turkey.
And that's why we're here. That's what keeps us in business, right?
The other ones, like the generators, emergency generators for inside the garage, and it's like,
or right outside your window. That's always
or the charcoal barbecue inside the house just to keep you warm.
Yeah, it's all about the deadly fumes that you don't see. Right?
Yeah.
That's what keeps us.
It's carbon monoxide, the silent killer.
That's right. The odorless, tasteless killer. But yeah, keep them 10 feet away from your house if possible. Don't do it underneath your roofs or any kind of roof eaves or anything like that, so that those fumes and carbon monoxide and everything don't enter into your home. You want to make sure that this is very important, and a lot of people don't think about this. You want to have the right amount of oil. So how do we find that out? Use water at first. So what I mean by that is fill your pot up with water to where you think it's going to be, and then start to introduce your turkey into that water. And if it doesn't overflow, you've done well.
The way I did it, I first of all, it's a thawed turkey.
Yes.
Deep frying a frozen turkey. Yeah, that's fun. Now we'll get to that. But I put in the turkey, and then I fill it up with water.
Right.
And then, I fill it up just to cover up the entire turkey, and then I mark it on the inside of the thing. And that's
because what a lot of people don't think about is when it boils or when it heats up, it's going to expand inside that pot.
And then it drips down the side and hits that flame. And
then fun.
All fun. The other thing that I noticed, some people, because of things like that, they don't want to make a mess and all that stuff, so they put it on top of cardboard.
No, don't do it on top of any combustible surface. And if you have a wooden patio or back porch or something like that, don't do it on that either.
No.
Just for the reasons that you talk about, dripping out and then down through the flames, and then it's going to ignite and cause a bad day.
And at best, it's going to drip and stain your wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't want that. You mentioned having a thawed turkey, so make sure it's thawed completely, and then you take some paper towels or a towel and dry off the skin of the turkey. You don't want to introduce anything cold or wet into this hot oil.
What about the stuffing?
No, that comes later.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's something you do later on. We talked about the frozen. Make sure that the kids and pets are away, and most importantly, have a fire extinguisher at your disposal. Okay, not just any fire extinguisher, but go to Walmart, go to Lowe's, go to some kind of home improvement store, buy a dry chemical or ABC fire extinguisher. You always want to have those. Always want to have one of those on hand when you're frying. using a whole lot of oil or using the oilless ones. All right, because you're cooking with propane, and any kind of fire that thing puts off, that fire extinguisher can put out.
And don't forget, even before frying the turkey, or even before the turkey's introduced, just lighting the flame, you want to do some special checks with your propane tank and
check your hoses, check your couplings, check your tanks for any kind of leaks, any kind of breaks. A lot of people, they only use these things twice a year, and it's during the holidays, and then they chunk it off into the storage. So you want to check for any kind of damage to your equipment.
And the best way to check for leaks is soapy water. Fire. If it blows up, you did it wrong.
That's right. Yeah, you can use the soapy water trick.
Yeah, just put that on there, and if it bubbles, you're good. That works on tires too, for a leak on a tire. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely.
And now so we've got our turkey, and it's frying, and there are some tricks to know when it's done, in addition to a thermometer. So first, you like we talked about earlier, you don't want to eat an undercooked turkey.
No, you do not. No. Probably not going to be good to eat, nor is it going to be good after the fact.
But it might be juicy.
It might be.
But the wrong kind.
It really depends on what temperature you've gotten it up to at that point. So Sergeant Choi can give you the 4 food safety handling tips, and then I'll give you a little bit more information about how you go about exercising those.
The 4 food safety, I guess, that most people don't grasp is you gotta clean everything, just food service contact, and then you gotta separate it, and then you cook and chill.
Yes.
Now the cleaning the surfaces, that's before and after, not just to keep your food clean, but especially with poultry,
yes.
or like I like to call it, foul.
Yeah. It will be foul if you don't clean
and the gizzards and stuff.
Gizzards,
that's awful.
All the
yes, sir.
So
get it?
So yes.
Awful.
So cleaning is not only about food contact surfaces that you want to clean, of course, before and after, but also during your preparation process. You also want to clean your hands, clean any utensils you may be using. And so if you're dealing with raw products, whether it's poultry, beef, any other type of meat source, or even if it's raw or undercooked vegetables or fruits, you definitely want to make sure that your hands are washed. You don't necessarily have to wash poultry, because if you, like, say, rinse it or something like that, it disperses some of the bacteria. So that's fine. You can wash your fresh fruits and vegetables under high pressure water. You can make a fruit wash that you can find a recipe online, or you can buy one from the stores if you'd like to do that. But mainly for the meat, especially during holidays, what we find to be effective is washing your hands, making sure you're cleaning off the surfaces, and then delving into the next food safety step, separating. When you have it stored in the refrigerator, whether you're trying to dry out the chicken or thaw it or the turkey, you want to make sure that it's separated from all other food products. So if you have raw ingredients that are of different meat types, you don't want those intermingling. Neither do you want them intermingling with fruits and vegetables, things that are not necessarily going to be cooked, depending on what it is, so that the bacteria doesn't transfer over and contaminate anything.
Yeah, the other thing is when you take the food to the cooking source, you got it on a platter or a plate or something like that. Don't use that plate after it's cooked.
No, do not do that.
It's like you're working backwards.
If you're going to use that plate again, you need to wash it. And you need to be careful of where any of the juices or the excess that happened during thawing are falling in your kitchen, because that also needs to be sanitized and cleaned with some type of either a bleach or a quaternary compound, something that's going to actually be effective against things like salmonella and other harmful bacteria.
Yeah, the ones that I like to do is like, do everyone a favor, and if you're going to taste the food and you get a spoonful of something, don't use that spoon again.
No, do not. There's no double dipping allowed.
No double dipping. I have to tell my teenage son, no double dipping. It's like, why? It's mine. It's like, yeah, but I'm going to eat some too.
Right. If it's just for you, that's fine. Other people are eating it.
Yeah, I could double dip all night long if no one else is going to do it.
Yeah. Nobody wants your germs, and no one wants the seasoning of your saliva on their food.
Exactly.
So outside of the cleaning and separating, then there's the step that we've been talking about quite a bit this morning, which is going to be the cooking step. So when you cook your food, especially if it's a meat item, you want to make sure that you're hitting the internal temperature that's recommended for it to be fully cooked, and it's at that point that all of the harmful bacteria have been killed off or inactivated. So
And I've got thermometers, and they sell them pretty cheap. They sell them everywhere.
Yes.
They're pretty cheap. And every time I go to cook, because I'm always overcooking things, I really don't like my steaks. I don't like a well done steak. That's like eating shoe leather to me. But my wife won't eat anything less than well done. And so I love it at a restaurant because they know what they're doing. But at home, I use a thermometer. And I cook with a thermometer in it as it's cooking, and then I check it afterward. The chicken, I'm always checking, and I always the easy way to do it is I've got my phone with me. Just Google what's the temperature of chicken.
Yes.
What's the temperature of a medium rare steak, and it's like, okay, first of all, take it off a little under what you're looking for, because that steak's going to continue to cook. I think that's my biggest problem right there.
Yeah. My biggest problem when you're trying to check the bird is, where do you put that thermometer? Where's the best place to put that?
There are a couple of different places. You can go over them.
For me, I usually stick the thermometers on the thickest part of the bird, I guess, because that's where I guess the biggest.
It's taking the longest to cook. There.
Yes.
Okay.
To go through. So
that's going to be the last place in the bird to actually reach the necessary temperature. So most of the guides will tell you what the set internal temperature is, but what you usually find is the temperature in the thighs, which are not as thick as the breasts, especially if you're using a turkey, they're going to be a little bit higher than that. So you don't want to take just the temperature of the thighs. You can do those as well, but also check the breast to ensure that they've reached at least usually 165. But as you said, the easiest thing to do is to, number one, use a thermometer. You can find some pretty cost-effective ones that are pretty good, whether it's digital or manual. It not only ensures food safety, but also food quality, because you're not overcooking it. It's still going to be juicy. It's going to have all the flavor that you want in it. And of course, with beef, there are still some tricks that you can use, like circling your thumb and your index finger and trying to feel the different. But that takes a little while to get. I've tried to use that, and just depending on how soft or hard your hands are, you might be overcooking that steak. Right. So the easiest thing you can do is use a thermometer when you cook. I use one when I cook. It just kind of takes some of the guesswork out of it, whether it's done or not.
And that reminds me of a good point with the fire safety. If you're checking your turkey, all right, and you're picking it up out of that oil to check it, kill the flame. Yes. Underneath.
Oh yeah.
You're taking that thing out, you're going to be pulling out oil with it and stuff like that. So kill the flame. It's a little bit of a hassle getting it all restarted and everything like that, but you don't want to blow up. You want to be able to enjoy your food.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not enjoy it. No, you can't enjoy turkey with 3rd-degree burns.
As well as if you're checking the temperature of something that's in the oven, just make sure that no items are falling into the oven that are going to come in contact with heating surfaces or that are going to catch on fire as well.
That's right.
But as you said before, you can just look up what the internal temperatures are of multiple meat sources. And so there are some good government websites that have internal temperature charts. They go through different types of meat, whether it be beef, poultry, or pork. And so USDA.gov, CDC.gov, FDA.gov are all good websites. Just a general Google search will take you to a really good internal temperature chart. It'll also help you find the 4 food safety tips, which the last one that we'll cover is when you cook something, it needs to stay warm. As soon as it comes down below a certain temperature, it's in what we call the temperature danger zone, where bacteria can grow. So it needs to be chilled immediately after you're not using it. So if you're not keeping it warm to a certain temperature, which again, you can find that online, it needs to go in the refrigerator to be chilled and go below, usually at least 41 degrees Fahrenheit, so that the bacteria are going to be diminished or killed off. And then the last one is going to be chill. So if you have food items that are chilled or supposed to be chilled, they need to stay chilled. So if you're, say, making...
Nothing like a nice mayonnaise sandwich on a hot summer day.
Absolutely.
Lovely.
Potato salad at a barbecue in the summer is usually the main way that people get sick during barbecues. Because they're like, well, it's potato salad. Yeah, but it has mayonnaise out of it, and it's been sitting out in the sun for about 3 to 4 hours. So if you're going to use something, the best way to do it is after the initial serving, you might just want to put it back in the refrigerator to have it chilled and just bring it back out when people want extra servings.
Yeah, I had when I was in the National Guard, we had a deployment or our annual training, and for lunch, some people went to this shellfish place, and this guy had crabs. It was really good stuff. No. he had like snow crab, I think it was, and he had leftovers, and he brought it with him and left it on the bus, and just ate some later on in the day. He was not feeling good. Everyone's looking at him going like, "You don't want to eat that." No. He learned the hard way.
If there's any food substance that you absolutely will and have to keep chilled or warm, it needs to be seafood. There's some very bad things that you can get from that.
So basically what you said, if you're not going to eat the hot stuff hot, cool it off. Chill
Yes.
it. And whenever you're eating cold stuff, keep it cold. Regardless.
Absolutely. So usually what most people do during Thanksgiving is they probably will take the turkey out of the oven, let it come to a temperature that it's servable or that people can eat it, and then they'll probably just leave it there. You can always put it back in the oven, and even if the oven is off, it'll maybe last for about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how hot your oven is, probably longer, where it'll stay at a good temperature. But if you have a thermometer already that you've used for cooking, just go ahead and temp the bird again. Most turkeys and chickens will come with a little like white plastic thermometer that either has a red top that'll pop up when it comes to temperature. Those are not inaccurate, but a digital or a manual thermometer is going to be far more accurate than that.
It helps. I mean,
it does help. So if you do not have a thermometer, definitely use that to determine when your bird is done. But a manual or a digital thermometer that you can read and use multiple times is a little bit better of a process step just to make sure you're ensuring food safety.
Do you trust those little plastic thermometers when you're frying your turkey?
They are accurate within a certain reference range. It kind of depends on which plastic ones, but I use my own digital thermometer, so I take that out usually when I cook. I actually smoked a chicken on a grill this past weekend, and I usually just take it out of there and I use my little digital thermometer to check the temperature.
I was going to say, I'll trust it a little bit when I'm roasting a turkey, but not
yes,
when I'm
roasting. Frying is.
I wouldn't even put it in the oil.
If
Take
you
that
put
thing
the
out.
turkey in correctly, generally you're not going to be able to see that thermometer when it pops up anyway. So
Yeah. I don't want plastic in my oil.
Have you tried the oilless fryers?
We have an air fryer at home, and we use that for the smaller stuff. It works great for French fries and pizza. And
Well, this is still a propane fryer. It's like an air fryer on steroids.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. You
I
rub
still
the
think
inside of the container. You rub the outside of your turkey with the oil, and you put it in that fryer. Man, I'm telling you what, that's some good stuff. And it's a whole lot less mess.
Nah. I'll have to look into it. I'll have to see what it is or what it's like. Because I just think it's like a roaster.
No, it gets crispy.
Does it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's good.
Now is there certain does it matter? I know it does. I know it matters. There's a loaded question, but does it matter what kind of oil you're using to deep fry a turkey?
So one of our jobs is not only food safety, but food quality as well. And you talked about before that you use canola oil rather than peanut oil.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Yes, it was a mistake. And the reason that is because I looked into just general frying parameters. So different oils have different smoke points. So peanut oil, one of the reasons it's used not only for its taste is because it has a higher smoke point. So it takes at a much higher temperature for it to actually start smoking. Canola oil has a much lower one. So anytime you deep fry something, the best thing to do is look online. And there are also charts as well that will tell you which is best for which type of food item that you're using and which type of method that you're using. I mean, using just like a Dutch oven or a pot on the oven is, of course, or the stovetop is a lot different than using an outdoor propane fryer to heat a turkey.
Yeah.
So that's going to depend on, usually peanut oil is the oil of choice.
Yeah, because you got to get that oil up to a certain temperature.
Yes.
Before you can actually cook something, because if it's too low, I mean, I got so into this. So it's like the odd facts that I know and trivia that I know. The reason deep frying works so well is because the temperature difference between the item that's being cooked and the oil causes a vapor barrier around it. So the oil doesn't really soak into it. But if it's not high enough to cause that vapor barrier, the oil will soak into it and you get all that greasy stuff. And that's why French fries from McDonald's are like the best French fries on earth 2 minutes after after you get it out of the oil. But they're the worst French fries on earth 3 minutes after.
The only bad thing about peanut oil is the allergy.
Yes. So if you do have an allergen to peanut oil, there are some other options, such as, I believe, safflower oil, some other ones that don't have nut, either tree nut or ground nut products that are not going to be able to cause allergens or allergic reactions. And then there are some types of peanut oil that may have actually been modified, like hydrolyzed in different ways, or processed to the fact that they will not have an allergen in them. You will have to, of course, look very closely to see which products and which companies make those. But if you're really just too concerned and you definitely have people in your family with peanut allergies, then just use a different oil and use a selection that you find online that's going to have around the same smoke point, just so you're not changing your cooking time and temperature that much. And the other thing with choosing a proper oil is also going to be not only the food safety that we talked about, but food quality, it's also food safety. So if you're cooking the outside of your turkey too fast, you're probably going to take it out of the oil before it's ready. Mm-hmm. And so the internal temperature hasn't reached its appropriate level, so you could still have some bacterial contamination.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed on the grill too. I set that temperature as high as I can go and get that good sear, and then the inside's still raw. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah. So the best thing for that is going to be patience, and of course, and there's kind of frequent temperature checks or regular temperature checks.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we do, I know that if we're outside with our deep fryer and we start a fire, mm-hmm. First of all, let's say I've followed all the safety tips. I've got I'm outside. I'm in the driveway, away from anything that's flammable. It boils over. Okay, yeah, I've got a fire going. I get my fire extinguisher out and I put it out. No big deal. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the kitchen and there's an oil fire, should I like throw flour on it?
Okay. And look. And even outside, you want to make sure you have the right extinguisher agent, okay?
Yeah, don't spray it down with the hose.
Don't use the water hose outside on that, big old pot of oil. It's going to look like a mushroom cloud goes up. Because anytime the same with the turkey, you don't want to introduce anything cold or wet to that hot oil, or else it's going to literally blow up in your face. So the same rule kind of translates into the kitchen. Don't use water if you're boiling or frying something, and that's what we call it at the fire station. We're boiling it. We're just boiling it in hot oil, right? Because our doctors are, anyways. So don't use water on any kind of fryer, okay? Any kind of oil fire, because when you put that on there, it's just going to blow up in your face. A lot of people talk about, like you said, the help me out. What was it? I'm having a brain fart.
The oil fire. Flour.
Flour.
Yeah, put flour on it. No.
Yeah. Don't do flour. Don't do. I mean,
cinnamon.
You can use baking soda. The best thing to do is, what do all pots and pans come with?
Lids.
Have that lid. Have an oven mitt ready to go. So if it flares up, you can, with the gloved hand, just slide that lid over that container, and it's going to kill the oxygen to the fire, and then the fire is going to go out. After you introduce the lid or put the lid on the fire, then reach over behind it and either turn off that burner, or if you can, slide it over to a burner that's not hot, and now you're removing the heat and the oxygen from that fire situation, and it's going to snuff out the fire.
Now, I've seen on, YouTube is pretty good for showing people's mistakes. We'll just call them mistakes. One of the big mistakes is people they panic. Mm-hmm. They panic when they have a fire flare up in their kitchen. Mm-hmm. So they grab the pot and try to move it over to the sink, and all they do is spill the oil everywhere. And it's all on fire.
Yeah. A while ago, I talked about not having the kids around this thing. And that's why, is because a lot of people will freak out and they'll grab that hot oil, that flammable oil, and they'll turn, and then inertia takes over. You stop, but the liquid inside the pot's still moving, right? So it splashes out. We don't want our little friends to be around
along with the fire.
Yeah.
The other thing, now that you brought that up, a quick, easy safety tip: mm-hmm. Turn the handles in. Over the stove.
Oh, on your pots, yeah.
Yeah. You don't want those kids coming up and grabbing it.
The kids are always going to grab stuff. Always cook with your pot handles turned in, so you're not tempting the little guys. Okay? I had a lady tell me one time that her husband was frying something and it caught on fire, and he threw it out the window. Yeah.
Who'd it land on?
That's why I was like, oh my God. So luckily there was no screen on the window. I don't know why there was no screen, but there was nothing on the other side that was combustible, and there was no people or animals on the other side of the window. So that's not a good idea. Put a lid on it. Literally slide the lid. Don't slam the lid down, because now you're forcing oxygen into the fire and it's going to make it bigger. So with the gloved hand, slide the lid over, place it on the pot or the pan, and then after you do that, either move it off the heat or turn the heat off. Fire has to have three things. It has to have oxygen, heat, and fuel. That fuel is the thing that's actually actively burning. But if you can remove any one of those three things, the fire is going to die.
Would you be able to use a household fire extinguisher to put out, say, a fire from an oil fryer?
Yes. As long as it's the powder type.
Okay.
So are you in housing? Do you stay in housing?
I do.
Okay, so housing provides that for you. It's that small extinguisher hanging up in your kitchen. Mm-hmm. Notice it's hanging up in a visible area. It's not underneath your cabinet, right? It's there to remind you that you have it. But you can use that same fire extinguisher outside on the fryer. Outside. That's the type. It's a kind of a jack of all trades fire extinguisher. That's what you have in the barracks, in the building, in the barracks. What you also have in your kitchens in the DFAC, you have a special fire extinguisher. It's a Class K.
Oh yes, I see those all over the DFACs and facilities.
That's not the same as what you have in housing. The Class K is kind of like a gel base, so that it doesn't get sucked up into the fancy motors of your cooking equipment. Whereas the ones at home, it's a powder type. So, but what it does is that powder acts as like a suffocating agent. All right, you're building a blanket or a lid with that powder, suffocating it from the oxygen.
Now
and it doesn't conduct electricity.
One of the things that I remember, because I remember when it first came out, or when they started marketing it as one of the best fire extinguishers around, was Halon. And that was heavier than air.
It is
oxygen just displacement.
Right. It's very effective.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, you want to remove that oxygen from the fire situation. The bad thing about Halon was you were also displacing it from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which made it a bad day for you. You put the fire out, but then you died because you couldn't breathe.
But I didn't burn to death.
That's right. So no, they've been removing the halon suppression systems and stuff like that. So
yeah,
they're coming up with all kinds of cool gadgets.
Now, some of the cool ones that I've seen, there's some from a long time ago. They're like antiques and stuff. Mm-hmm. They're glass orbs. Mm-hmm. They're like a glass ball, and you just throw it in the fire.
It's a grenade. It's an extinguisher grenade.
It was crazy. It was just like, oh, that's so neat. And they showed how one worked, and you don't want to use all of them because they're like antiques. But you just throw that in, and it's poof, the fire goes out. It's like, oh, that's cool.
It looks like a glass teardrop almost. And
wow.
And had it came on a little mount that was next to your oven. And you just pick that thing up, and like you said, you just throw it, and it breaks, and yeah, it's a wonderful.
But you can't eat the food afterward. There's too much glass.
You could, if you're like one of those sideshow.
Yeah, one of those sideshow guys, glass eater.
Yeah, strong stuff. But you just want to be safe.
Now, I've always, when I look for fire extinguishers, or when I talk about them, I'm always talking about ABC. Mm-hmm. How many different kinds are there?
Well,
because I know there's like. I don't even know what letters they are, but ABC pretty much is the jack of all trades. Mm-hmm. And there's a water,
which is A,
and then there's a powder,
right? And
then there's a gas. Mm-hmm. Then there's some that you use for electronics.
So, what you're looking at is your A. That can be if you remember anything that burns and leaves behind an ash. That's a Class A fire. So when you see the A, B, C, these are classifications of fire, not classifications of extinguisher. Oh. Yeah, so you want an extinguisher that will work specifically on that classification of fire, which is Class K fire extinguisher, like you see in your DFAC kitchens. That's a Class K because it's a kitchen fire extinguisher, and it has an agent inside that canister that puts out those types of fire. Class A, like I said, if you remember anything that burns and leaves behind the ash, that's a Class A. Anything that is a flammable liquid, so kind of remember B for boils, that's a flammable liquid. So if your extinguisher says Class B, that means it's good for a liquid fire. Gasoline, cooking oil, margarines, when they're reduced into their liquid state, is a flammable liquid. If your wife goes to Sam's or Costco and gets that big thing of fingernail polish remover, that's a flammable liquid. All right, so just kind of FYI, keep that away from combustible or from a heat source, right? Class C, if you remember anything that has an electrical current or charge, that's a Class C fire. So obviously you don't want to use water on a Class C fire because you'll have a shocking experience, right? I always teach. Remember the Ren and Stimpy song about the electric fence?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah, don't use water on an electric appliance, right? Yes. So that's where the ABC fire extinguisher comes in. That's why it's a jack of all trades. The powder doesn't conduct electricity. It doesn't cause flammable liquids to blow up in your face when you introduce it on there, and it still extinguishes your ordinary Class A fires. You also have a CO2 fire extinguisher. That's the gas one that you were talking about. It's used on it's really used on Class B and C fires predominantly, but it can be used on a Class A. And if you watch WWF or WWE, that's the extinguisher that they spray in each other's face because it's just cold air. Then you have Class K. You also have Class D. And if you'll remember D for ding, because that's for metal. Fires, right?
White
magnesium,
phosphorus.
Right? your Humvee wheels and stuff like that, those are Class D.
A brake
fires.
fire. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Okay.
So that's okay. That's the first time I've ever realized that the letters actually can stand for what kind. I didn't know it was the fire.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I just thought it was okay. We got A, B, C, D. I didn't know it was ash, boiling, chemicals, and metal.
Well,
and kitchen.
That's just ways to remember it.
Well, it's going to be now. It's stuck in my head.
You're welcome.
And now I won't remember my birthday.
It's in January. It's January something.
Yeah, something in January.
Someone else reminds you usually about your birthday.
Somebody always reminds me. Actually, it's getting close to retirement, so yeah, I'm paying a lot of attention to my birthday.
Yes. I'm looking forward to the end of January.
Yeah,
I'm eligible for retirement at the end of January.
Nice.
I'm pretty far away.
But it's worth it. It's worth it, man. My biggest mistake was getting out of active duty. Yeah, I could have. Oh man, I'd still be retired now. But anyway, the other things, there's a couple. I mean, this stuff always. I love this stuff. I watch on YouTube this guy named Guga Foods, and he is a big steak person. It's all about the meats with him, and he knows his meats. But the thermometers that he uses are so cool, and I got to get me some because they're wireless. Wireless thermometer. You stick it in the meat and you leave it there while you're cooking, and it's got the Bluetooth to your phone, and it'll tell you, it's like, okay, you're good to go. And it's like, oh, this is so cool. I want one of those so bad.
Those are great if you either smoke or slow roast any items. So people who have smokers or you have items that you're grilling, usually things like rib roast, or sometimes even ribs, things like that, or a brisket. I've seen them used very popularly for that because the temperature probe, you just leave it in, it connects to your phone. I believe you can even set alerts on some of them, so it'll let you know when it goes above or below temp, and I'll let you know when to change it. It makes things so much easier. I have, because it was a little bit more cost effective and I think I'll use it in more places, I have a probe thermometer, which just has a kind of a metal spike on it. And so you probe different parts of the meat. There are also some external temp thermometers, which aren't going to be as accurate because they're not going to check, of course, the internal core temperature.
Yeah.
They're just going to check the surface temp. But usually a probe thermometer that is either electric or wireless, or even the probe thermometers that are handheld, those are going to be the best ones.
Yeah, I've got one of those too.
Good as well.
Those are better for checking your cooking surfaces rather than the food itself.
Yes, those generally are. And you use for other things besides cooking surfaces, like the thermometers we've been using to check people's foreheads during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The thermal scanners.
Those thermal scanners are really just checking your surface temperature. But Sergeant Choi, would you like to tell them how to check if their thermometer is accurate?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes. It's very simple. People would like to overthink calibrating a thermometer. What I like to do is just get like a decent sized, water container that people carry around. I'll fill it up with ice all the way to the top, and then I will fill it up with water.
So ice water.
Basically 50-50 ice and water, and then I'll stick the thermometer in, and leave it for like 5-10 minutes, just or until I see that little dial
Moving.
stop, and
Yeah.
then I'll once it stops after maybe 5-10 minutes, I'll either get it like a pair of pliers, because some of those thermometers are really hard to
Move.
adjust.
Yeah.
So I'll just set it to 0, and then
That's 0 Celsius.
Yes.
Not 0 Fahrenheit.
yes.
So
So usually looking for 32 degrees Fahrenheit if you're using a Fahrenheit thermometer. And in a bucket of ice water, that's usually the temperature we like to get it to. There could be a little bit of variability, so it could be within 2 to 3 degrees. But it's good to know, because when you're checking the internal temperature of your bird, if it says, oh, we've reached 165, you know that you might need to go up a couple of degrees after that. And then also make sure that you're sanitizing the thermometer in between uses, because if you checked it early on and it hasn't reached temp, then there might be some bacterial contamination. So you just want to sanitize it, even if you're just checking the same item, or especially if you're checking different items, so you don't contaminate.
now, is there a secret? Because since you guys work in the food areas, is there a secret to keeping? Because I like turkey breast, but it's always so dry, especially on a roast one. Do you have any secrets to keep that moist, or is it like just the not the prep, but other than injections?
Other than injections, usually outside of prep, it's going to be cooking time and temperature. So as someone who enjoys food very much, and is a very avid watcher of some
Yeah, I've
food
always been
shows.
told don't trust a skinny chef.
Exactly. Very much so. The only reason I work out is because I eat so much.
Yeah.
So usually it's going to be either the prep of your food or the way that you're cooking it. So if that's going to be the temperature of the oven or whatever method you're using to cook it, and then the time that you're doing it for. So yes, you do want to reach the proper level in order to make it food safe. But if you're cooking it too long, or if you're cooking it at a too high temperature where it's going to cook too fast, that's generally where you lead to the dryness in meat products.
Gotcha. And also pay attention to the color of the meat.
Yes.
So if
Pay
it's
attention to the color
smoked,
of the meat.
if you're smoking a turkey,
You want the pink.
you want the pink.
So when we evaluate,
When you're smoking anything, you want.
You want that ring.
That's very true.
Yes.
But usually when we evaluate food items, it's a five senses sort of thing. So there should be a certain look to it, a certain smell, a certain taste, so even a certain feel, and as well sound sometimes. It should hit all of those five senses in the correct way. And most of the way to do that is kind of either trial and error, or looking at beneficial sources where they're experts in food. These are generally chefs or food scientists who know exactly what you're looking for. So prepping beforehand is going to be one of the best ways to ensure not only safe food, but good quality food.
Absolutely. You just take one of the Clorox wipes and wipe down the surfaces before you start working, clean everything. And then once you're done, especially with poultry and stuff, wipe it down again with,
Yes.
And you can use Clorox, you can use Lysol, you can even use dish detergent as long as you're cleaning it. Usually use the product label to make sure it's sitting for a certain amount of time, and then make sure it's fully wiped away so you're not also contaminating your food with too much chemical.
yeah.
On the poultry, do you want to get the thermometer as close to the bone as possible? Or
No.
do you just leave it in the meat?
Usually you can leave it in the meat. Try and aim for, if you're checking a breast or a thigh, try and aim for the middle of the meat. So it's a little bit.
What if I'm barbecuing some chicken legs?
Oh, if you're barbecuing chicken legs, I would go for the thickest part of the meat, and you can probably hit the bone. That's going to be actually a good way, depending on what size chicken legs these are, to check it, just to know that you're in deep enough. Other than that, you're really going to just kind of have to gauge distance. So kind of knowing, maybe measuring from the outside, how long is your probe, how big is the breast from the top of it all the way down to maybe past where the wing is.
And then there's the bone check where you can twist the bone inside the.
Yes, depending on what you're going for. So if you're roasting or smoking something, when you can move the bone and it seems like it's going to pull out easily, that's generally one of the best ways.
The other way I learned about deep frying poultry is once it's done, it floats. Poultry floats when it's cooked properly.
Yes, when you're frying chicken, and it starts to
it's gonna
float,
float.
yeah. But when you're doing the turkey outside, it
Mine-
probably isn't going to float that much.
Mine did. Mine.
Did it really?
I had it on. It wasn't the hook, but it was like a tray thingy, and it started rotating, and I had to go in there and dig around for the hook to pull it out because it started floating and it flipped upside down.
Small
and
turkey.
and always cook it with the carcass hole down. You don't want a bucket of oil pulling out with your turkey.
Which is let
it drain.
Point. Thank you for mentioning that. So
See, I've always done it with it up.
Yeah, and then when you pull it up, you've got the whole turkey carcass filled with oil,
But then you've got that really good crispy skin, right?
and it's moist.
And I call it turkey crackling.
Turkey cracklings.
No.
that sounds really delicious. But no, you made me remind a good fact. So if you're using stuffing and you're stuffing the bird, you need to temp the stuffing as well as the meat, because that stuffing also has to reach a certain temperature to be safe. Usually depends on what you're putting into it beforehand, but because it's been in contact with a raw poultry source, then you also want to make sure it's reached enough temperature to kill the bacteria as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I'm sure I'll have you guys back in here for Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July. 4th of July is a good one. And but it was great. Captain Judson, Aaron Judson.
Can I say one more
One thing.
Just because veterinary services also does veterinary medical care, please make sure, I know that sometimes you can't resist giving your pets food items that are human-based, but just make sure it's something that doesn't have any toxic substances or products on it that are going to be harmful to them that we can eat pretty readily. The best way to do that, there is a toxic food substance chart or panel from the ASPCA.org. That's the one I usually reference to people. The main things like chocolate, avocados, salt, pepper, things with onions and garlic in it. Just to make sure that we don't have to see your pet after the holidays for an upset stomach.
Keep your fur babies safe and wonderful. All right, Captain Judson. Sergeant Choi, thanks for joining us. And Chief Estes, I appreciate you guys coming in and talking with us. And I hope everybody enjoyed this. Thank you. All right, I'm Jeff England, and this has been the Fort Polk Podcast. We'll be listening at you later.